Hello everyone, thanks for coming outside with me today. Today we're talking saddle hunting from the ground up from a beginner's point of view. So I've been saddle hunting for a little bit over a year now. I'm not going to claim that I'm an expert, that's definitely not going to happen. I'm not going to claim I know any of the engineering that goes behind any of this either. But I would like to go through all the bits and pieces of saddle hunting and what you should expect from a beginner's perspective, that novice entry-level type idea, what you should expect when you're getting into saddle hunting, and some tips and tricks along the way. So first and foremost, let's get talking the actual saddle itself. You have two options. You can buy a manufactured saddle or you can go with a sit drag DIY option. That's what I hunted through the vast majority of this past hunting season, was through a DIY sit drag model. I shot both my deer out of my sit drag this year and it was a fantastic setup, a very comfortable setup. Now, the only downside is that there are multiple pieces to a sit drag setup. The sit drag itself is not meant to be used in the air. It is meant to be used on the ground next to the tree. It has a certain weight rating, about 300, 350 pounds. There is no safety line attached to it. So you have to wear a rock climbing harness. So instead of a manufactured sit drag, or manufactured saddle rather, where the sit drag and the harness are combined into one, with a sit drag setup you have the two separate pieces. That means more ropes, more buckles, more pieces, more parts to purchase, and more things to wear. Now both saddle types are going to get it done, whether it's manufactured or the DIY sit drag version. Both are very comfortable in my personal opinion. Both are very economical for what you're paying for in those particular situations. With the manufactured saddle, you're paying for ease. You're paying for all the parts to be right here. 2 ropes, 1 saddle, couple of buckles, and you're done. This is it. It weighs ounces, definitely less than a pound for the whole setup, where with a sit drag and a rock harness, you're talking a lot more buckles and moving parts, a lot more pieces. Now, it's just as safe, both sides, this manufactured and the sit drag, as long as you use them both correctly, but the manufactured one is going to be more streamlined and going to be a little bit more user-friendly over the long run. Now, whether you use a sit drag or a manufactured saddle, the actual names and parts and pieces of the things are going to stay the same. So let's run through them here really quickly. So you actually have the saddle portion, which in this case is the all-new Tethered Phantom for 2020. It is a fantastic saddle system, but we'll get to that in a later video. The parts and pieces, however, are exactly the same. So you're still going to have a lineman's belt. You always need a lineman's belt. The moment you leave the ground, whether you're in a climber, you're running a hang-on, or you're running a saddle, you should be tethered to the tree at all times. In this case, the lineman's belt is the best way to go. You would simply take it around the tree and connect it back into your lineman's loops, either on your safety harness or on your rock climbing harness. Now, on a rock climbing harness, unlike a manufactured saddle system like this, it often does not have lineman's loops on the outside. You have to go from the belay loop in the center of the harness. So whether you use a sit drag, DIY saddle, or manufactured saddle, you're going to have this part here, which is the bridge, which actually connects the saddle to your tether, which is connected to the tree. This would go into a carabiner, and you have the ability to rotate your hips through and allow you to get around to those shot angles, and ultimately to help fix the comfort level best for you. Now, in this case, this Tethered Phantom is made out of AM steel with a full bury, so it's really thick, so it can have an adjustable bridge. So there's a Prusik knot over here, and I can make this tether short or long depending on how I want to feel it. Now, saddle hunting is all about comfort. Unlike sitting in a chair, which is all you're doing when you're sitting in a tree stand, sitting in a saddle is really dependent on your comfort level. There's no cushion or no hammock seat. You are in a hammock, and you have to worry about hip pinch and how the saddle rides going up and down your bottom. Now, I personally like the saddle when I'm actually up in the tree to be down pretty low. I like to really cup it underneath my butt. I don't have much of a butt to begin with. I'm not a super huge dude. I have about a 36-inch waist, about 215 pounds. I'm 6'4", so I'm a pretty big dude in the tree, and I like to be stable and comfortable. And so one of the ways is to take that saddle and move it down, both with the sit drag and with the Phantom. I found that to be a really useful way to have the saddle sit on my body when I'm up in the tree. Now, also going back here to the bridge for a second, this bridge on this Phantom is adjustable, which is fantastic. It means you can run it really long or you can run it super short. Now, the length of your bridge as it goes to the carabiner, if it's super short, it's going to shrink down the angle on your hips, right? Think about this. You're making an isosceles triangle between the top of the carabiner here, which would be attached to your tether, and between the sides of your saddle system. So the longer this is, the wider this angle is down here by your hips. The closer it gets to 90 degrees. The shorter this bridge gets, the shorter that angle gets. So it's clear down here. Now we've gone from an angle like this on my left hip. Now it's pinched in more into my left hip. And that's a problem some people experience. And the term is hip pinch. So because I'm a wider dude, 36 with full hunting clothes, I'm 38, 39, in particular with the big bibs on, I really like to run this out as far as I can. So you can run a 24 to 30 inch bridge, which would make it a little bit longer, or you can run a shorter, an 18 to a 12 inch bridge. That depends on your size, your hip, how big you are, and also just your general comfort level. There are some big guys that probably like a shorter bridge. There's some little small guys that love the big long bridge. It's up to you. If you run a sit drag saddle setup where you can adjust that with knots, you can play around with that. If you have an adjustable bridge, like on this Phantom, you can play around with it as well. If you have a manufactured saddle that has a fixed bridge, you're kind of up the creek without a paddle. So you'll have to play with some things in order to find that perfect sweet spot for you. So we talked about the saddle itself, the lineman's belt, the actual loops that hold the bridge onto your saddle and how that is. So let's actually get to the part that are stuck to the tree. So right up here, I already have my tether attached to the tree, and this is simply girth hitched around the tree, which means I've taken the rope around and put it through a figure 8 loop, and I've just set it there on the tree, and it's gonna hold all of my weight and then some. I need a carabiner with, in this case, a Ropeman 1 to keep the bridge clipped in and keep me tethered to the tree at all times. The secondary carabiner is the secondary safety feature, and I'll show you that once I get onto the tree. Now, once you get past the tether and you work your way down, you'll notice I have 2 separate platforms here. One is a DIY platform made out of a steel tree stand seat, and the other is the tethered Predator platform. So just like the DIY saddle, you can do a DIY platform. You could do wild edge steps, you could do a ring of steps, squirrel steps. I personally took the seat off of an old steel tree stand and used 2 cam buckle straps with 2 old Versa buttons I had, and that's what's secured to the tree. It is very secure. It's actually relatively quiet, but it's heavy and it's bulky, and there's no cam over action, so I have to play around with 2 straps, which is really a royal pain in the butt. Now, it is still very stable, so I can jump up here, and as you can see, it holds my entire body weight. I can let go of the tree, I can move up and down. I feel very safe and secure on this. There is a little bit of bounce to it because it doesn't cam over. It simply is just attached to the tree, just like a tree stand. Do be careful with the DIY system. It's all at your own risk. Sure, this worked. I was perfectly safe in it this year, but I would much rather have a manufactured system for me, for something to stand on when I'm 15, 20 feet up a tree. So let's step over here to the Predator platform. This is a cammed over platform. You'll notice that on my steel stand, the platform's on top and the support arms are on the bottom. The Predator is flipped. The support arm is up here, and then the platform is on the bottom, which allows this to cam lock itself into the tree when it's at its particular position. So I can step up off of my stick. I'm going to tether myself in here by attaching my bridge into the tether. I'm just going to kind of position this here so I'm a little bit more comfortable. Like I said, I like to have my saddle come down a little bit lower, just like this. Now I can sit in, and now I am ready to go. All I need to do is pull my bow up, and I'm actually ready to hunt. Now, you'll also notice I like to wear knee pads, and I'll talk about this very briefly. You could have a pad of some sort attached to the tree, or you can wear knee pads. I particularly like to wear knee pads because they're always attached to me. It's one less thing I have to throw around the tree with a buckle or something, and I can just sit into the tree just like this. I am incredibly comfortable in this position. I'm just like sitting in a chair. I could do this for hours and hours on end, and I have done it for hours and hours on end. So when I could go to the right knee, I can go to the left knee, I could sit a little bit side saddle, just like this, and this is even really comfortable if I know I'm going to particularly watch a trail that direction. It's something you can really get used to. Now, let's go back to the Predator platform. Let's look at the side pressure here. Notice I can walk around this way, put all my weight on that one side. I could come over to this side. It's a little bit hard because this tree is leaning, but I can put all my weight here on this side. Notice it does not kick out. It's very, very safe because it's cam locked into the tree, whereas that one is just placed onto the tree with a couple of cam buckle straps. All right, so a quick recap. We have the tether, which goes from your body, from the carabiner here to the tree. The tether then has the bridge that clips into it. If you think about it, you are creating a rope bridge or a webbing bridge from one hip to the other. So you have bridge, you have tether. Here I have a Ropeman 1. You could run this with a Prusik knot. There are plenty of tutorials online. I like the Ropeman 1 because it's very simple to move that up if I want to be more comfortable standing more upright, or I can simply move it down a little bit and I can get more comfortable sitting down. You can do the exact same thing with a Prusik, but it really does take some working because you're putting a lot of weight onto that Prusik knot. It bites really hard onto that rope and it can become harder to move later. So I'm going to move this back up a little bit. And this is where coming with that hip pinch and all that comfort level really becomes important. My bridge is all the way out. I have big hips. I want that extra wide angle on that isosceles triangle. And I'm very comfortable in this position. I'm more of a leaner than I am a sitter. So I spend a lot of my time on stand like this. My feet towards the edge of the platform. I'm leaning onto my bridge. I'm very comfortable. I'm scanning, use my binoculars, all that sort of stuff. This is a really comfortable position for me. I find that I have most of the weight on one leg and then I'll shift to the other to allow circulation. And I'm really, really comfortable this way. Now, back to this guy very briefly. This is another carabiner that I've attached to another Prusik knot. The reason why I've done this is a last-ditch safety effort. So most people kind of wig out when they see a guy hanging by one rope 15, 20, 25 feet in the tree. This rope is 11 millimeter static line. It has an 8,000, 9,000 pound breaking string. That's pretty stinking strong. That's a lot of weight. That's a bull elephant and then some, 8,000, 9,000 pounds. But it does wig people out a little bit. It can be a little bit nerve-wracking when you're first in a saddle. Now, this second carabiner, because this rope is so strong, the only thing that's going to break on this system would be maybe this Ropeman 1, or maybe I have this Prusik gives way here, or maybe there's a weird part of the saddle that all of a sudden gives way. I want to be tethered in with another piece. So these lineman's loops on the side of my saddle, I simply take my lineman's belt, go from one hip to the other, clip it in, and since my lineman's belt runs on a Prusik, I can just run this short mini bridge. I can take that mini bridge, clip it into a carabiner, and now I have a second level of safety. Now, I know it's overkill, right? But for somebody like me who's my size, I know that if I'm breaking something, I'm falling hard, okay? And this is just a little bit more peace of mind. I'm not saying the Phantom's not safe, or the stuff that they produce in the ropes and carabiner and the Ropeman 1 and all that industry is not safe. That's not at all. There are arborists and tree climbers daily that put their lives on the line with this rope, and they trust it with all of their might and all of their training. So I'm going to trust it as well. We have some incredibly high strength climbing spec rope and carabiners and everything else. Everything's appropriate, but I just like to have this second little mini bridge, and in the event that this was to go, this was to fail, or this bridge was to fail, this second lineman's belt would catch me and I'd fall maybe an inch or two and swing back into the tree just like this, and I would be very safe the entire time I left the ground. Another thing I'll say about the leaning and sitting, I have found that when I first got into the saddle, I was sitting with my knees more at a 90-degree angle, which was okay, but it wasn't super comfortable. I felt like I was just sitting in a kiddie swing, and I was getting a lot of hip pinch. I found that if my knees are closer to this, about a 120, over 100 degrees, but not quite, the 140, 150, if I'm in that 120, 130 range, I just have so much comfort here. My knees are perfect. I have a little bit of weight on my feet, a little bit of weight on my knees, and weight on my hips, and I can just sit here for hours on end. This is so comfortable. If I want to run a back band or something like that, it goes around behind me, I can lean back like I'm in a recliner, and I could sit here for hours and hours on end. This is just a fantastically comfortable, very functional system, and I'm super excited that I found this out, because originally, like I said, I'll show you, when I first started out, I was sitting, like I said, closer to this 90-degree feel, and you can see how scrunched in I am, right? I just look kind of scrunched in, and I'm not entirely comfortable in this position, but as soon as I move this up and I get closer to that 120, I'm so much more locked in, I'm so much more comfortable. Also, this more upright feeling allows me to move around the tree a little bit easier. So let's talk about some of the basic moves and basic shot angles you can have while sitting in a saddle. So I'm a right-handed shot, which means everything on the left side of me is my strong side shot. Everything on my right side of me is my weak side shot. So my strong side shot down over here, my favorite way to shoot is by standing. So simply come up here, my bow will be on the left side of the tree, I will pull it off, I will draw, and I will be able to shoot anything down off to my left. A typical tree stand shot you would usually have. Now, I can see some of you already are thinking, well, what about reaching over the bridge? What about getting over there? Well, there's a couple of ways you can rectify that. You can have this lower, or you can make your bridge shorter. I'm pretty long though, so I got a lot of reach to get over and around all of these things. So my strong side shot is taken care of. What about, we're gonna move on the clock face counterclockwise. So this is from noon to about 9 o'clock. What about 8, 7, and 6 coming behind me? That's known as the drop shot. But in a saddle, it's super simple. Because remember, you are backwards from where you are in a tree stand, right? So instead of the tree being behind you, like you would be in a tree stand, the tree is now in front of you. So actually, in a tree stand, that behind you shot is nearly impossible. In a saddle, it's very simple because there's no tree in the way. So you have a couple of options. You can go with the bow over the bridge, which is not ideal, or you can simply rotate your hips. So you don't want to just spin. If you just spin, you're going to be in all kinds of problems. The easiest way to do this is to put your body weight towards the tree first. You can either bring your knees all the way in, you could just simply bend one knee, which is one way I like to do it. I can simply, I know I'm turning to my left, I have the bow in my hand, knee on the tree, clip on my release, and then I'm just going to simply rotate my hips through this carabiner. So bow, clip on, rotate. And as you can see, I've completely covered my 6 o'clock. And I can even, well now, because I'm in that really good T form, I can now actually pivot my feet and move my entire body weight to 3 o'clock, and I can cover this entire back of me. So let's do it again. I can stand here, I know there's a deer coming out behind me, I'm going to want to take that shot. I can take my bow off the hook, put my right knee against the tree, rotate my hips, and spin around to make the shot. And as you can see, I've now kept my pivot point, my right knee is my pivot point, and I'm pushing off with my left. So I can start here, I can shoot down to the 7 o'clock, 6 o'clock, 5 o'clock, keep moving my left foot, 4 o'clock, 3 o'clock, and I can even come all the way up if I really needed to, almost to noon. I can almost go 360 degrees around the tree. Notice I'm just switching which knee is against it. So I can go from noon with the left knee here, pushing, right knee, pivot, 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 almost to noon again on this side. Now that's not ideal, obviously. You don't want to have to swing clear around the tree to make a shot, but the fact that now I have eliminated all blind spots. There's not a single blind spot on this tree. And this tree is actually a little bit larger than most trees that I like to shoot around. We like to shoot for trees about the size of a basketball. This is just a little bit bigger, but up at hunting height, it would be about that basketball size. I just keep my knees pivoted into the tree, and then I can just move around. So you don't want to think, stay out here. Don't stay out here. If you stay out here and try to move around this way, you'll end up finding you're going to swing too much, and you'll end up doing something stupid like that. And particularly if you go towards your strong side, and you're going to try to shoot towards your weak side, if you end up swinging all the way out here, you might find that you don't end up coming back because you've swung too far too quickly. Knees to the tree. Now left knee goes to the left, come back up. Right knee, go to the right. And everything is so fluid and so painless. It's all in a rotating of the hips and keeping your knees on the tree. All right, so that was a lot of information in this video, and I apologize for the length. But if you have any questions furthering about the Tethered Phantom itself and all the ins and outs and bells and whistles that it has, or if you have any questions about how I made a DIY saddle, hit me up on Facebook and Instagram. Leave a comment here on YouTube. My email's down even in the description if you want that more personal touch. Hope you're able to get outside, enjoy the sport of archery hunting if you so choose. Definitely enjoy God's beautiful creation, and we'll get to see you next time. In the meantime, I'm going to practice my drop shot.